Every year, 1 billion people celebrate Holi believing they know why. Prahlad. Holika. The fire that burned the wicked. But what if that entire story, the one taught to every child, was written 1,000 years after the ritual already existed? The real origin is something far stranger. The Bhagavata Purana, the text that gave us Prahlad, Holika, and the bonfire of divine justice, was compiled in the 9th to 10th century CE. The fire ritual it claims to explain is documented in texts more than 1,000 years older. This is not a footnote. It is a complete inversion. Even more startling, the Narada Purana and Bhavishya Purana themselves explicitly acknowledge that the bonfire ritual predated the Holika story. The Puranas admitted it. This is one of history's most successful narrative takeovers, hidden in plain sight within the very texts that performed it. Greek ambassador Megasthenes, writing around 300 BCE, recorded spring fire festivals across the Indian subcontinent. He described the flames, the offerings, the celebrations, and mentioned no Holika whatsoever. An outside witness, centuries before the myth existed, confirming the ritual was already ancient. The historical sequence is now clear. Between the 4th and 8th century CE, during the Great Consolidation of Vaishnavism, an ancient agrarian ceremony was given a new devotional story. The ritual was real. The myth came later. An understanding that changes everything about how we read Holi. The first clue is buried in language. The Sanskrit word, Holika, does not mean a demonis. It means half-ripe roasted barley grain. An agricultural term. A harvest word. Documented in the Kaushika Sutra, a commentary on the Atharva Veda, written between 600 and 300 BCE. Indologist P.K. Gode published his landmark finding in 1943 in the Annals of the Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, a peer-reviewed argument that Holika derives from this agricultural root. The festival was named for the grain offering. The demonis was named for the festival, not the other way around. The Jaiminiya Grihaya Sutra, written around 400 to 200 BCE, contains one of the oldest explicit textual references to a Holika fire ritual on Phalguna Purnima, the full moon of late February. The ceremony was already named, already dated, already described. Centuries before Prahlad was born on any page, scholar Hazuri Prasad Dwivedi explicitly documented Holi as a festival of the agricultural community, its fire symbolizing the burning of winter's residue. Not a theological statement. A farming necessity. The bonfire cleared the old to make way for the new. The theology came centuries later to explain what the body already knew. This is the Holi origin story that predates all others. A farming community, a full moon, a fire, and a handful of half-ripe barley cast into the flames as an offering. Simple. Ancient. Honest. Everything that came after, the myths, the colors, the theology, grew from this single burning seed. The Atharva Veda, written between 1200 and 1000 BCE, contains hymns referencing fire purification rites tied to the exact moment of the Phalguna full moon. This was not coincidence. The timing of Holi was astronomically precise, chosen because rabi crops like wheat and barley were ripening but not yet harvested. Fire was lit using the ancient Irani method, rubbing together pieces of sacred ashvatha wood until a pure flame emerged. No match, no shortcut. The friction itself was the prayer. Participants circumambulated the fire 7 times, chanting to Agni as Pavaka, the purifier, the very first word of the Rigveda. Into the flames went handfuls of half-ripe barley, sesame seeds, and dried cow dung cakes, each accompanied by the Vedic phrase, Idam na mama, this is not mine. This is offered 3,000 years before modern mindfulness. An entire civilization was practicing the art of letting go through fire. Rigveda hymn 5.83, addressed to Perjanya, the rain deity, was recited at these spring fires, explicitly asking for monsoon rains to follow the harvest. Women carried water pots around the flames, symbolically inviting rain. The festival was a conversation between fire and water, between what must end and what must come. Red powder, kumkum made from turmeric and lime, was applied to the fire's base stones as a fertility offering to Prithvi, the earth goddess. This is the direct 3,000-year-old ancestor of today's color play. The colors of Holi were never about celebration. They were a prayer to the ground beneath your feet. At dawn, after the fire cooled, the village priest gathered the ash, vibhuti, basma, and applied it to the foreheads of every community member. The Shatapatha Brahmana, written between 800 and 600 BCE, describes this ash as pavitra, purifying. The Atharva Veda used it as protection against seasonal disease. This is why you touch Holika ash today, and the Palash tree, Butea monosperma, the flame of the forest, blooms precisely during Phalguna Purnima. Its flowers were the original source of Holi's red color, documented in the Charaka Samhita in the 1st century CE. Nature itself scheduled the festival. The tree bloomed on cue, as if it always knew. While northern India tells the story of Prahlad and Holika, South India preserves an entirely different mythological lineage for the same bonfire. In Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Andhra Pradesh, Holi is called Kama Dahanam, and the fire does not burn a demonis. It burns the god of love himself. The Shiva Purana tells it this way. After Sati's death, Shiva retreated into profound meditation on Mount Kailash. The demon Tarakasura, who could only be slain by Shiva's son, was terrorizing the cosmos. The gods had one desperate plan: send Kamadeva, the god of love, to break Shiva's trance. Kamadeva approached on his parrot, armed with his sugarcane bow and flower-tipped arrows. He drew the bowstring. He aimed at the meditating god. He released. For one suspended moment, the universe held its breath. Then Shiva's third eye blazed open, and Kamadeva was reduced to ash in an instant. Rithi, Kamadeva's grief-stricken consort, wept before Shiva and implored him for mercy. Moved by her devotion, Shiva restored Kamadeva, but in an arapam, a formless state. Desire purified of ego. Love without attachment. The god of love was reborn as something higher than he had been before. The structural parallel between Kamadahana and the Holika story is too precise to be coincidental. In both myths, a figure with supernatural power is destroyed by sacred fire. From that destruction, a higher order emerges. Both myths encode the same ancient theology. Fire does not merely destroy. It transforms. This is why the same gesture, applying ash to the forehead after the holy bonfire, carries two entirely different mythological meanings depending on where in India you stand. In the north, it is Holika's ash. In the south, it is Vibhuti, the sacred ash of Shiva. One ritual, two stories, one fire. The Rigveda's very first hymn, the opening word of the oldest surviving religious text in the world, addresses Agni as Pavaka, the purifier. Whether it is Holika's pyre, Kamadeva's incineration, or the ancient Vedic Agnihotra ritual, fire functions as the cosmic reset button. This is Holi's deepest grammar. Beyond the Vedic texts and Puranic myths lies a third, older layer of Holi, one that anthropologists have documented in the tribal belts of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Odisha. Here, Holi operates on a fundamentally different register. It is not a devotional celebration. It is a structured social revolution that lasts exactly one day. Sociologist McKim Marriott, in his landmark 1966 essay The Feast of Love, described what he witnessed in village India during Holi. Lower caste men could drench upper caste landlords with colored water. They could abuse them in song. They could demand gifts, all without social consequence. He called it ritual license. The world turned upside down, on schedule. Marriott called this a reversal of roles that paradoxically reinforced the social order by releasing its tensions annually. Sociologist D.N. Majumdar described such festivals as safety valves. The hierarchy was not abolished on Holi. It was briefly, officially, theatrically acknowledged, and that acknowledgement was enough to sustain it another year. Ethnographer Verrier Elwin, who lived among central Indian tribes from the 1930s through the 1950s, documented in the Baiga that the Baiga people scattered bonfire ash on their agricultural fields at Phalguna Purnima to bless soil fertility. The same practice, the same full moon, the same ash, independently preserved, without ever reading the Vedic texts that prescribed it. In Odisha, the Khan tribe gathers at Phalguna Purnima to worship Dharni Penyu, the earth goddess. No Holika, no Prahlad, no Vishnu. Just a bonfire for the earth herself, lit by communities who never needed a Puranic story to know that winter must burn before spring can breathe. Among the Gond and Baiga communities of Chhattisgarh, unmarried young men and women danced in ritualized courtship circles around the holy bonfire, connecting the festival explicitly to procreation, to the fertility of the soil and the species alike. The fire was not just purifying the land. It was calling life forward. In Gandhi communities, Holi is one of the only annual occasions where inter-caste commensality, shared eating and drinking across caste lines, is openly practiced. The temporary equality enacted during Holi was not accidental. It was structurally necessary. A managed inversion that acknowledged inequality by briefly suspending it. Taken together, these tribal traditions reveal something profound. Holi's deepest social meaning, fire, fertility, equality, renewal, was never invented by any text. It was lived, season after season, by people who had no access to Sanskrit manuscripts but who understood, in their bodies and their fields, what the season demanded. Now hold all four strands together. The Vedic agrarian fire of the Kaushika Sutra, the Kamadahana of the Shiva Purana, the fertility rites of the Baiga and Kant, the social inversion documented by Marriott. For traditions, for geographies, for mythologies, one astronomical moment, one full moon, one fire. The Holika Prahlad narrative did not corrupt Holi. It joined it. It became the story that a devotional, literate, Vaishnava civilization needed to make sense of a ritual it had inherited but not invented. The myth was a translation, ancient fire rendered in the language of Bhakti devotion. This is how living traditions actually work. They do not have single origins. They accumulate. Layer upon layer, century upon century. Vedic grain ritual, Shaiva mythology, tribal fertility rite, Vaishnava devotional story. Each generation adding its own meaning to the fire that was already burning when they arrived. The colors of Holi, originally the red flowers of the Palash tree, the red kumkum of Prithvi's altar, the ash of the sacred fire, were always about the same thing, the moment when destruction becomes creation. When winter's gray gives way to spring's red. When what was offered to the fire returns as color. Next time you stand before a Holika Dahan fire, you are standing before something 3,000 years old. The priest who first lit this fire did not know the name Holika. He knew the name of the grain in his hand. He knew the name of the moon above him. He knew what the fire was for. And he was right. Holi is not one story. It never was. It is the oldest question that agriculture taught humanity. Can you let go of what you have grown, trust the fire, and believe that spring will come? Every year, 1 billion people answer that question. They have been answering it for 3,000 years. And the fire has never once failed to go out or to return. If this changes how you see Holi, if the grain offering, the ash ritual, the Palash flower, the third eye, the tribal bonfire now feel like part of something you already knew but had never been told, then the fire has done its work. It has burned away one story and left the real one standing.